let's be real for a second. K-pop loves to sell us the happy family fantasy. But what went down between Min Hee-jin and NewJeans wasn't a fairy tale. It was a straight-up psychological thriller. We all saw the leaks. We saw the mother of NewJeans allegedly calling her own creations fat, stupid, and claiming they were nothing without her genius. That isn't just a management clash. That is deep-seated, visceral resentment. It completely shatters the illusion of the perfect bond we were sold. It forces us to ask, what kind of chaos was actually happening behind closed doors to make a CEO speak with that much venom? I've combed through the transcripts, the alleged insults, and the timeline of the fallout, and if you read between the lines, a clear hierarchy of frustration starts to emerge. You want to know who really pushed her to the brink? Let's rank the headaches. Number 5. The smiley mask, the burden of constant optimism, Danielle. We are kicking this list off with the member who feels like the absolute antithesis of Min Hee-jin's dark, cynical, artistic genius, and that is precisely why she lands here at number 5. You look at Danielle Marsh and you see sunshine, you see Disney princess energy, you see a girl who looks like she has never had a bad day in her life, but let me tell you, from my perspective observing this chaotic industry for years, managing perfection is sometimes the most exhausting job on the planet. Think about it. Min Hee-jin, based on those leaked texts and that erratic, emotional press conference, presents herself as this tortured artist, a mother figure who believes she birthed these girls creatively. And in those alleged texts, she complained about the members being fat, stupid, or lacking vision without her. Now, where does Danielle fit into that toxic matrix? She is the yes girl. She is the one constantly trying to smooth things over. And if you have ever dealt with a narcissistic personality type in a leadership role, and I am just speculating here based on the public behavior we saw, nothing is more irritating to them than someone who is relentlessly happy or seemingly, pardon Hanbi, some pardon fouls are and I am. Naive. It feels like a challenge. It feels fake. I honestly believe that for Min Hee-jin, Danielle's westernized, open, overly expressive nature might have been a massive headache to curb. You have a creative director wanting cool, mysterious, aloof-it girl vibes, and then you have Danielle who wants to pour her heart out on the phoning app every 5 minutes. That creates friction. That creates a management nightmare where you are constantly telling a teenager to dial it back, to stop being so essentially themselves. It's a subtle kind of difficulty, not the rebellious kind, but the kind where the artist's natural personality clashes with the director's curated vision. And let's dig deeper into the ungrateful narrative that Min Hee-jin was spinning in those leaks. She allegedly claimed the girls wouldn't have made it without her, implying they were nothing special on their own. When I look at Danielle, I see someone who has been vocal, almost desperately so, about her love for CEO Min. Remember the petition? Remember the speeches? It's tragic, really. It's like watching a child try to hug a porcupine. The difficulty here for management isn't that she fights back, but that she clings too tight. How do you manage a member who is so emotionally invested in you when you, behind the scenes, are allegedly calling them names and planning your exit strategy? That is a psychological burden. It's the guilt factor. Every time Danielle smiles at her or thanks her in an awards speech, it probably twisted the knife in the narrative Min Hee-jin was trying to build for herself that she was the victim. A happy, successful, grateful member ruins the I am suffering narrative. I also want to touch on the cultural disconnect. Danielle is Aussie, Korean. There is a different level of autonomy and outspokenness there that doesn't always mesh with the rigid, top-down Korean corporate structure that even Min Hee-jin, despite her rebel image, operates within. You can see it in the way Danielle navigates interviews. There is a spontaneity that is dangerous for a control-freak manager. I remember watching one of their live streams during the height of the feud, and Danielle looked shattered. Her eyes were telling a completely different story than her smile. That creates a volatility that is terrifying to manage. If the happy one cracks, the whole group image crumbles. So, she sits at number 5, not because she is a villain, but because maintaining her specific brand of innocence while the walls are burning down around them requires a level of micromanagement that would drive anyone insane. It's the difficulty of keeping a white dress clean in a coal mine. And let's be real, reading between the lines of those leaks, the disdain wasn't just about rebellion. It was about vibes. If Min Hee-jin thought the members were getting big-headed or hard to control, Danielle's popularity and her solo ambassador gigs probably added fuel to the fire. It's the classic Frankenstein's monster complex. You create a star, and then you hate them for shining too bright without you. Danielle shines very bright. And for a manager who needs to be the sun in the solar system, that is a problem. It's a quiet, simmering tension that doesn't explode in shouting matches but erodes the relationship slowly, day by day, smile by forced smile. Seeing her caught in the crossfire, trying to be the peacemaker in a war she didn't start, makes her a complicated piece on this chessboard. She isn't just a pawn, she's a bishop moving diagonally, trying to cover all the angles, and that makes her incredibly hard to pin down and control. Number 4. The silent treatment, the unreadable cat, Haerin. If Danielle is the sunshine that burns you, Haerin is the void that swallows you whole, and that is why she lands at number 4 because, let's be honest, nothing, and I mean nothing, is more terrifying to a control freak than silence. You look at Kang Haerin and you see the it girl of the generation, the cat eye icon, the meme queen of being strange. But have you ever stopped to think about what it takes to manage a teenager who barely speaks? We are talking about Min Hee-jin here, a woman who thrives on chaos, on long-winded explanations, on emotional manipulation, and on dominating the narrative with her intellect. How do you dominate a wall? How do you manipulate someone who looks at you with those wide, empty eyes and gives you absolutely zero feedback? I've been watching the dynamic between these girls and their mother figure for a long time, and Haerin has always struck me as the glitch in the Matrix. In those infamous Kakao Talk leaks that HYBE released, Min Hee-jin allegedly complained about the members being stupid or hard to talk to, calling them names that would shatter a normal person's confidence. I look at Haerin and I see exactly who she was talking about, not because Haerin is stupid, far from it, but because she is impenetrable. Imagine being a CEO who needs constant validation, who needs to hear, "Yes, mother, you are a genius," and you get Haerin just blinking at you. It's a psychological dead end. The difficulty here isn't rebellion, it's unresponsiveness. In the high-stakes world of K-pop, managers need raw material they can mold. They need to know what you are thinking so they can fix it or exploit it. Haerin gives them nothing. She is famous for her no thoughts moments, but I have a darker theory. That is a defense mechanism. She is dissociating. She is checking out. And for a micromanager like Min Hee-jin, that is the ultimate insult. You can scream, you can cry, you can threaten to leave the company, and Haerin will just sit there like a beautiful, expensive statue. That has to be infuriating. It's the kind of passive resistance that drives narcissists up the wall. I remember watching that emergency YouTube live stream. The girls did the one that basically ruined their corporate standing with HYBE, and everyone was focused on Hanni's frustration or Danielle's sadness. But I was staring at Haerin. She looked like a hostage reading a script, but she also looked bored. That is a dangerous combination. It makes you wonder, did she even want to be there? Or was she just dragged along by the strong personalities around her? Managing someone who has no strong opinion is actually harder than managing a diva, because you never know when they are going to snap or just walk away. And let's talk about the weight comments. The leaks allegedly mention the members getting fat or needing to manage their weight strictly. Haerin is still a growing kid. The pressure to maintain that sharp, alien-like visual perfection while dealing with a boss who calls you a pig behind your back? That creates a pressure cooker of resentment. I feel like Haerin is the type to internalize everything. She absorbs the toxicity like a sponge, and one day, that sponge is going to be full. Min Hee-jin probably looks at Haerin and sees her greatest creation, the perfect visual, the trendy vibe, but also her greatest frustration because she cannot access the girl inside. It's like owning a locked iPhone without the passcode. You have the device, but you don't have the control. And for a woman who held a press conference claiming she planned every single hair on their heads, not having access to Haerin's inner thoughts must keep her awake at night. The industry rumor mill always whispers about the quiet ones being the scariest, and I believe it. While Min Hee-jin was busy fighting Bang Si-hyuk and fighting the media, she probably didn't notice that Haerin was quietly observing every single mistake. That observational power makes her difficult. She sees the cracks in the armor. She sees the hypocrisy, and unlike the others who might cry and ask why, Haerin just watches. That is a haunting presence to have in your boardroom. It's the difficulty of managing a mirror that reflects your own craziness back at you without saying a word, and frankly, I don't know how anyone handles that level of awkward tension on a daily basis without losing their mind. Number 3. The uncontrollable growth spurt. The emotional time bomb, Haerin. We are entering the danger zone now, the top 3, and landing right here is the member who represents the single most volatile variable in Min Hee-jin's carefully curated equation, the maknae, Lee Haerin. You might look at her and see the high-fashion darling, the Louis Vuitton ambassador who walks with the swagger of a supermodel twice her age. But let's strip away the luxury branding for a second and look at the terrifying reality of managing a literal child in the middle of a corporate bloodbath. Why is she number 3? Because biology is the one thing Min Hee-jin cannot gaslight, cannot manipulate, and cannot sue, and Haerin is growing up right before our eyes in a way that I suspect drives a control freak absolutely bonkers. Think about the alleged texts where Min Hee-jin complained about members gaining weight or losing their freshness. Who takes the brunt of that twisted obsession? The 14-year-old who is hitting puberty. Managing Haerin isn't just about scheduling, it is about fighting nature. You have a CEO who built her entire aesthetic on youth, on this fleeting nostalgic sense of girlhood, and then you have a member who is rapidly becoming a woman, growing taller, changing shape, art, and developing a mind of her own. That is a logistical nightmare for someone who wants to freeze time. I honestly believe that every time Haerin shoots up another inch or her features sharpen, it feels like a betrayal to the concept in Min Hee-jin's mind. It's the difficulty of trying to keep a butterfly in a jar when it has already outgrown the glass. And let's talk about the emotional labor. We saw Haerin in that live stream, the one that arguably put the final nail in the coffin for their neutrality. She wasn't just reading a script. She was emotional, she was raw, she was clearly deeply affected. Managing a teenager with that much emotional depth is exhausting. You aren't just a manager, you are a therapist, a mother, a guard dog, and a villain all wrapped in one. In those leaked messages, the disdain for the member's intelligence or maturity was palpable. Imagine the frustration of needing Haerin to be a stoic professional for a Vogue shoot, but then dealing with the reality that she is a kid who probably just wants to go home or hang out with her friends. The difficulty here is the guilt. Even a narcissist feels the weight of a crying child, or at least the annoyance of it. Haein's injury, the foot fracture that took her out of the How Sweet promotions, that was a massive blow. From a management perspective, that is a disaster. You have to reblock choreography, you have to explain her absence, you have to deal with the fan sympathy that shifts the focus away from the genius producer and onto the suffering artist. It disrupts the flow, it breaks the immersion. And for Min Hee-jin, who treats this group like a seamless art project, a broken piece is a major agitation. I also get this sinking feeling when I watch Haerin interact with Min Hee-jin in those older behind-the-scenes clips. There is a level of dependency there that is frightening. Haerin looks at her with total adoration, like a duckling imprinted on a human. That makes her difficult to manage in a breakup scenario. If Min Hee-jin leaves or gets ousted, Haerin is the collateral damage who will likely take it the hardest. How do you manage a member whose entire sense of security is tied to your presence, especially when you are allegedly calling them fat behind their back? It is a ticking time bomb of betrayal. When Haerin finds out, if she hasn't already, about the way she was spoken about in those private texts, the backlash won't be quiet. It will be an emotional explosion. Managing that potential fallout requires a level of sociopathic detachment that I don't think even the toughest CEO is fully prepared for. It's the tragedy of the golden child. She was the chosen one, the face of the future, but she is also the most fragile. You have to walk on eggshells around her, not because she is a diva, but because she is breakable. And in an industry that demands you to be bulletproof, having a member made of glass is a liability. It forces the manager to constantly play defense, to constantly soothe, to constantly lie about how everything is going to be okay when the house is literally burning down. That energy drain alone puts her firmly at number 3. It's not just business with Haerin, it's personal, it's messy, and it's heartbreakingly real. Number 2. The unscripted rebel, the girl who dragged the corporate giants to court, Hanni. We are down to the final 2, and honestly, this placement was a war in my own head because how do you quantify chaos? But landing at number 2 is the member who didn't just break the rules, she rewrote the entire playbook on idol rebellion, and that is Hanni Pham. You might know her as the bubbly, charming, blue coral reef superstar who conquered the Tokyo Dome with a smile that could melt glaciers. But let's stop looking at the stage and start looking at the courtroom. Because Hanni is a manager's absolute worst nightmare, she is a whistleblower with a microphone. Think about the sheer logistical horror of managing a 20-year-old who decides, on her own accord, how to walk into the National Assembly of South Korea, the literal seat of government power, and testify against her own parent company about workplace bullying. That is not idle behavior. That is revolutionary behavior. And for a control freak like Min Hee-jin, or any manager at HYBE for that matter, that level of autonomy is terrifying. You cannot script a government testimony. You cannot edit a live stream that goes out to millions in real time. Hanni represents the nuclear option. She is the one who took the vague, shadowy corporate war and made it personal, specific, and legally actionable. When she spoke about the manager of another group allegedly saying ignore her, she wasn't just venting, she was dropping a bomb that shattered the one family image of HYBE forever. I have to ask, do you realize the stress of managing a talent who is willing to burn the bridge while she is still standing on it? Most idols are trained to endure, to swallow their pride, to bow and apologize even when they are right. Hanni refused. She looked at the camera, her voice trembling but her eyes burning, and she said no. From a management perspective, she is difficult because she is uncontrollable. She has a moral compass that overrides her contractual obligations. In those leaked texts where Min Hee-jin allegedly complained about the members being fat or stupid, I wonder if she ever anticipated that Hanni, the one she mocked, would be the one to stand up and fight for. Struck her the hardest? It is a twisted irony that makes my stomach turn. Hanni is fighting a war for a mother, who, behind the scenes, was reportedly calling her a product. The guilt of managing that dynamic must be crushing. Every time Hanni cries on camera about how much she loves CEO Min, it just highlights the manipulation. But let's flip it. What if Min Hee-jin didn't want her to go to the assembly? What if that was Hanni going rogue? That makes her even more dangerous. A loose cannon who thinks she is helping but is actually exposing the entire messy internal structure is a liability. She forced everyone's hand. She forced the CEO of ADOR to respond. She forced the CEO of HYBE to respond. She forced the Ministry of Labor to get involved. One girl, one decision. And let's talk about her power. After that blue coral reef cover, Hanni became the it girl of Japan. Her popularity skyrocketed. That gives her leverage. When the most popular member is also the most vocal critic, you cannot just silence her. You cannot dungeon her without causing a riot. That makes her impossible to discipline. If you tell her to stop posting, the fans will revolt. If you let her post, she might drop another bombshell. It is a catch-22 that would make any PR team drink themselves into a stupor. I also sense a deep, simmering anger in Hanni that goes beyond just the bullying incident. She is an artist who takes her craft seriously. She writes lyrics, she contributes to the vibe, and to be treated like a pawn in a billionaire's ego battle clearly insulted her intelligence. The way she articulates her frustration in English and Korean, switching between them to maximize her impact, shows a level of calculation that is scary. She isn't just an emotional kid, she is a tactician. She knew exactly what she was doing when she mentioned the greeting issue. She weaponized basic manners to expose corporate rot. That is brilliant, but God, it must be exhausting to manage. You have to watch every word she says, every stream she starts, every look she gives on stage, praying she doesn't decide to start round 2. She sits at number 2 because while the others might be emotionally draining or stubbornly silent, Hanni is active. She is kinetic energy. She is the spark that blew up the powder keg, and once that explosion starts, no manager on earth can put it back in the box. Number 1. The unofficial leader, the shield that finally cracked, the girl who gave the ultimatum, Min-ji. We have arrived at the absolute peak of this mountain of chaos, the number 1 most difficult member to manage, and if you have been paying attention to the subtle shifts in power, the body language, and the sheer weight of the atmosphere in that room, you know there is only one name that could possibly be here, Kim Min-ji. You look at her and you see the classic beauty, the Olivia Hussey of Korea, the girl with the calm, deep voice who seems to have it all together. But let me tell you something from the bottom of my heart, managing the responsible one in a dysfunctional family is the single most draining, terrifying, and impossible job on the face of the earth. Why is she number one? Because Min Hee isn't just a member. She is the dam holding back a tidal wave of resentment, and when that dam breaks, everyone drowns. In the leaked texts that shocked the world, Min Hee-jin allegedly complained about the members' weight, their intelligence, calling them kids who needed to be micromanaged to death. But Min Hee? Min Hee is the one who has to hear that, process it, and then turn around and tell the younger members, it's okay. Mother loves us. Can you imagine the psychological torture of being the middleman between a narcissist and a group of innocent teenagers? That makes her incredibly difficult to manage because she knows too much. She is the oldest. She sees the cracks in the facade before anyone else. And for a control freak like Min Hee-jin, having a member who is smart enough to see through your manipulation is a constant, looming threat. I want you to think back to the kalguksu incident, the noodle controversy. It sounds stupid, right? But watching Min Hee have to write a formal apology letter because she didn't know a type of noodle. That was the moment I realized this girl was under a microscope that would burn an ant to a crisp. The stress she carries is not normal. And then, we have the live stream. The emergency broadcast that changed everything. While the other girls were crying or angry, Min Hee was terrifyingly calm. She was the one who looked into the lens and gave HYBE a deadline, September 25th. She issued an ultimatum to a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Do you understand what that means for a manager? That is the ultimate loss of control. Min Hee went from being the obedient soldier to the general of her own army in real time. Managing a rebel is one thing, but managing a usurper? That is what Min Hee became in that moment. She took the wheel. She decided the timeline. She decided the narrative. And if I am Min Hee-jin watching that from home, or if I am the new HYBE management trying to rein her in, I am shaking in my boots because Min Hee has realized her own power. She realized that without her, there is no NewJeans. That realization makes her difficult in the most dangerous way possible. She is no longer afraid of consequences because she believes she is already living in the worst-case scenario. And let's get into the ungrateful narrative again. Min Hee-jin allegedly claimed she made them, that they were fat and nothing without her guidance. Min Hee has a very distinct, masculine-leaning, handsome beauty that Min Hee-jin specifically curated. But Min Hee also has a stubborn streak. The Gomji or bear nickname isn't just for show, she digs her heels in. I suspect that behind closed doors, Min Hee is the one who pushes back the most on the concept when it feels inauthentic. The difficulty here is the clash of egos. You have the mother of K-pop who wants total submission, and you have the nation's first love who is tired of being treated like a doll. I honestly believe the tension between Min Hee and Min Hee-jin is the thickest because it's a mother-daughter dynamic gone wrong. It's the eldest daughter syndrome. Min Hee has to be perfect, has to be the MC, has to be the ambassador, has to be the leader, but she gets no credit for the brainwork, only for the face. That breeds a quiet, simmering resentment that is impossible to fix with just a good job sticker. When Min Hee stares blankly during those uncomfortable press moments, it's not emptiness, it's calculation. She is weighing her options. What makes her number one, above the silence of Haerin and the rebellion of Hanni, is the burden of responsibility. If Min Hee cracks, the group dissolves. If Min Hee decides to side with HYBE, Min Hee-jin is finished. If Min Hee decides to go to court like Hanni, the case becomes unwinnable for the company. She holds the keys to the kingdom. Managing someone who holds your fate in their hands is the definition of a nightmare. And let's be real, the emotional toll on her must be devastating. To be the face of the group while your mother is calling you names in private texts? That is a betrayal that cuts to the bone. I see a sadness in Min Hee's eyes lately that wasn't there during HYBE. It's the look of someone who has grown up too fast, who has seen the ugly underbelly of the dream, and who is done pretending. She is difficult because she is done playing the game by their rules. She is writing her own rules now. And for a manager who needs to be the author of every single page, Min Hee ripping the pen out of their hand and writing the final chapter herself is the ultimate insurmountable difficulty. She is the alpha and the omega of this group's destiny, and that is why Kim Min Hee is, without a shadow of a doubt, the #1 hardest member to manage in this entire tragic, beautiful mess.